So this is where a couple of things come into the picture in this UI, right? So we have this connect tab, which allows you to connect using Java. So there is a Java section over here, which tells you how to connect using Java. So when you click on this Java option, you see there is a download secure bundle option over here, right? So DataStax provides this to help us connect our Java applications to this Cassandra instance in a secure way, right? So you download the secure bundle, and then you give this secure bundle to our application, and our application is going to use this to connect to Cassandra, all right? So I'm going to click on this download bundle link. This has, you see here, if you have multiple regions, you will have an option to download a bundle for each region. I just have one region, so I'm going to click here and download. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your Cassandra instance that you have set up on DataStax, go here, go to the database first, click on connect, and then click on Java, and then you're going to get this download secure bundle option, right? So you're going to click on this download bundle, and then choose the version, the region that you've selected, and then it will download this for you, right? I'm going to open this in archive utility so that it extracts it. And now here is my secure bundle. You see here there are a bunch of certificates and all that security stuff, trust stuff, which the application needs to connect to this Cassandra instance. What I'm going to do is copy the zip file to my application. Okay, I'm going to put this in the source main resources directory. Okay, the application needs to know where this file exists. So you can either provide a complete path. I'm going to say, users download or c:users my name download, whatever, right? So you can do that, and that works fine. But then it's not a relative path. So what I would like to do is put this in the resources folder. I'm going to reveal in Finder. So this is my code. This is where my code is located. I'm going to go to source main resources, and I'm going to paste that zip file over here. Okay, so now what's going to happen is I can give a relative path and say my secure bundle is in the location /secure bundle. I'm going to rename this, right? I'm going to call this secure connect.zip. I don't need the name of the app, right? Secure connect.zip. So now when this application is loading, when the application is running, what is the path where that secure bundle exists? It is in secure bundle.zip, because anything that's in source main resources gets added to the class path of a Java application. So it is going to be available in the class path. Makes it easy. You want to make sure you don't check that file in. So I'm going to go to git ignore, and then I'm going to exclude that file from check-in. All right, so I'm going to make this secure bundle. So this is going to be / whatever this file is located at. All right, so copy path, not this whole thing. So this is going to be this guy, src main resources secure connect.zip, right? So I'm adding this to git ignore so that it doesn't get checked in, because we don't want it to get checked in, right? But you put the file there so that it's available for the app to use. I am going to do a git init to make sure that this works. I'm going to go to my terminal, and then I'm going to do a git init. And now if you see the files that need to be checked in, you see that secure bundle isn't there, right? Because it's ignored, get ignored. All right, now I need to make this application connect to this Cassandra instance. I have the bundle, but now I need to do a couple of things. I need to give it the address of where the database exists, right? And the credentials of how to connect, right? I need to give it the username for the database, right? I need to create a user for the database, have it connect to it. And then I need to give it the secure bundle and say, hey, use this certificate and this trust store to connect to that. So I need to do 3 things, okay? Let's start with giving it the address of my database, all right? How do I tell the Spring Data Cassandra project here that my database exists on DataStax Astra, and it has to connect to that and not to my local Cassandra. Don't try connecting to my local Cassandra because I don't have anything there, right? How do I make it connect to that? Well, you know that the typical way to connect to configure anything in a Spring Boot app is using application.properties, right? You see this application.properties. It's blank right now. I can put things here to make it connect to whatever I need, right? If I have a relational database, I make it connect to that. If I have a config server, I put this here to make it connect to that. It's a common place where you configure it. Well, no surprises. Even Spring Data Cassandra expects you to configure your Cassandra instance by providing the coordinates of your Cassandra database over here, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is rename this. I'm going to call this application.yaml. Okay, YAML is a little less verbose than properties, and we don't have to duplicate properties again and again. It's easier to type, so I'm going to choose YAML here, right? Now let me get the configuration values that I need for Cassandra. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is create that spring.data.cassandra configuration. Right, so I'm going to just make it Spring Data Cassandra, right? So this is the space in the config where I can provide all of the things that I need to configure for Cassandra. So for example, I want this to connect to a specific key space. I can say key space name, and I give it the name of the key space. What is the key space that I have? I have a key space called main. So I'm going to put that there. So another thing I can specify here is if you press command space or control space, you get these options. So you have a bunch of things you can configure over here for Spring Data Cassandra. So username is a good option, right? Username and perhaps the password can be configured over here. So we don't have a user account for our database. We just created the database on the cloud with DataStax Astra, but we don't have a username and a password to give here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create that username and password. All right. So if I go to settings here and scroll down, you should see here application tokens. Looking to manage your tokens, we've moved the application token management to organization settings. So I'm going to go here to organization settings, and this is where, let me switch to full screen here. So this is where I'm going to create a user and a password for my application, for this for this database, right? So I have a couple of tokens here already, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a new token, all right? So I'm going to click this button, drop down here to select a role, and I'm going to choose an admin user. You can be a little bit more picky about exactly what you want. I'm just going to do this, admin user, and then generate token. And now here it gives me the token for what I can connect. I can use this token to connect to this application. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy all this stuff here. So I'm going to say client ID, copy, paste this here. Client secret, copy, paste this here, and then the token, I'm going to copy and paste this here. Okay, so that's the client ID, secret, and the token. Now what I'm going to do is take this client ID and put this as a username. Okay, that's my username. I'm going to take this password, client secret, and put that as the password. All right, this token, I'm going to keep this over here because I'm going to be using some other configuration for that. But right now I have a username and password, which is going to connect to that database. Okay, there are a bunch more options that I can configure over here, which is kind of specific to the way Spring Data Cassandra works. Okay, so I talked about how a lot of the projects in the Spring Data umbrella have this behavior where you specify Java classes, which are entities that back your database. And then you can have these Spring dependencies, Spring Data dependencies, create schemas based on your data definition in your Java classes. Okay, so you define your Java classes and say, okay, this is one table of mine in one Java class, and then you give it what the primary key is, what the properties are, and then Spring Data project dependencies typically know how to create the schema based on that. Okay, so this is controlled by a property called schema action. Okay, schema action allows you to specify what that schema action should be. Should it actually create the schema based on your Java classes? Or should it only update it if your Java classes change? Or should it not update the schema at all and just leave it as is? It really depends on where you are in your database journey. Like if you've established your database, everything is ready. You don't want every Java project running to wipe that out and create new schemas, right? You don't want that to happen. So that's the reason why you specify this over here. I'm going to choose this option here, create if not exists, okay? There is none, which means don't modify the schema at all. There is recreate, which means create every time. There is create, drop and create. It's like there are a bunch of options here. I'm going to use create if not exists. What this allows me to do is I can create Java classes and have the schema be affected, but it's not going to drop something which already exists. That's right. It's create if not exists, which is handy. So I'm going to choose this one. Okay. Next, I have a bunch of options for configuring the request timeout. All right. So there is this request option, request.timeout, and I'm going to set this as 10 seconds. This is recommended when you're working in a development environment and you're connecting to a Cassandra instance that's on the cloud. Development machines can be finicky. So depending on your internet speed, sometimes your application will not work because it's not able to connect because of your internet issues or something like that. And usually when you're developing, you want as less things to go wrong as possible, right? When something goes wrong, it should be because you made a mistake and not because something timed out, because it's hard for you to debug one way or another. So I usually tend to be a little bit liberal in terms of the timeout. I say, try for 10 seconds. And if it doesn't work for 10 seconds, only then fail, right? So this is true for connection timeouts as well. So I'm going to set connection.connect timeout. And I'm going to make this as 10 seconds. And I'm going to have the init query timeout, which is also going to be 10 seconds. Okay, so this is my Spring Data Cassandra configuration. All right, so I've configured the credentials, I've configured what the key space name is, and I've configured some of the request parameters and the timeout parameters over here. All right, now I can specify the connection bundle. All right, so this connection bundle that I've downloaded over here is very much a Spring Data, is very much not a Spring Data specific thing. It's a DataStax Astra thing. All right, so this is something that DataStax, our cloud provider of choice for hosting Cassandra, has given us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a DataStax specific property called DataStax.Astra, and I'm going to give this a property called secure connect dash bundle, and I'm going to give this the name of the zip file which I have over here, which is secure dash connect.zip, right? Secure dash connect.zip. This is going to be a property that I'm going to expose to my application so that it knows how to use this this zip file to connect to my Astra location. Okay, now I'm going to provide a bunch of location specific information. All right, so I'm going to say astra.db.id is going to be the database ID that I'm going to choose. I'm going to say astra.db.region, which is the location where I have specified where my database needs to be hosted. I'm going to say astra.db.keyspace. Why am I doing this? This should be, we are doing YAML here. So this should be something like this. ID, region is going to be over here, and then keyspace is going to be over here. This is the benefit of YAML, right? You don't have to keep repeating the same thing over and over. And then I'm going to have application dot token, which is going to be this application token. You remember we got this application token from Astra. So I'm going to put that there. Now the rest of the stuff, the ID, region, and the key space, how do I get that? So I'm going to go back to my application here, and not organization, so I need to go back to my database. All right, so I'm going to click on home here. and go to my better reads database. I should have a cluster ID. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put this over here. This is the DB ID, all right? It's basically where the Astra database is that it needs to connect to. I'm going to put that over here, which is astra.db.id. Region is going to be US West 1. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here. And the key space is main. We already know this. So I'm going to put this over here as well. So these are the properties that I need to have for my application to connect to Astra. Now, there is one other thing that I need to do, which is to expose this thing over here. What I have as a property over here, I want to expose this as a Java configuration. So what I'm going to do is go over here and create a new Java file. And I'm going to call this, let me actually put this over here. I'm going to go to the Java projects view. Makes it easier for me to create new Java classes, right? So I'm going to call this in the connection package. I'm going to call this DataStax Astra properties.java. All right, so there's going to be a class. And what I'm going to do here is expose that property over here, which is over here, DataStax.astra. I'm going to expose this as a property over here by using the @configuration properties annotation. Okay, I'm going to say prefix is DataStax.astra. And then the property itself is going to be, what's the property? Secure connect bundle. All right, so I'm going to call this as the property over here. And of course, it has to be camel case, secure connect bundle. Now, the secure connect bundle is a zip file. So this is going to be of type file. Okay, so I'm exposing this as a property so that it knows to pick this up and use this. I'm going to create getters and setters here, getters and setters, and fix all the imports. And now we're good to go. Now what's going to happen is when I run my application, it is going to not use a local, or it's not going to try and connect to a local database or a local Cassandra instance anymore. It's going to try and connect to my DataStax instance because of a couple of things. One, I have given all the configuration necessary, including the user details and all that stuff over here. And I have also asked it to use this file that I've specified over here, right? All I need to do is specify the name of the file because this is in the class path. If this was not in the class path and you had to give an absolute file name, you would have to specify that whole absolute file name, right? /users/ whatever, or C:\users, whatever. Here it is going to be a relative path and it's there in the class path because I put this in source main resources. So it's going to find it there. Now notice what happens when I run this application now. The last time I ran it, what happened? It complained and said, hey, I'm not able to find an Astra instance, all right? So I'm going to run this one more time. And if you notice the console, well, I do get an error. Let's see what the error is. Error creating data configuration. Okay, data configuration. Oh, because it doesn't find that class. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here to the main class and I'm going to say enable configuration properties. I'm going to give it the name of the class where I have this configuration properties. What's the name of this class? It is DataStax Astra properties. Right, so I'm going to give this the name of the class so that it knows to load the configuration from here. All right, dot class. If you're not familiar with this, what this is doing is enabling the configuration property annotation. All right, so if you hover over this, it'll tell you, see, enable support for the @configuration property annotation. Right, so we need this because we are using this class as a configuration property. We're saying, hey, go get this, expose this secure connect bundle as a file property for this application. So I have to enable it in the root class. And I do that by using the @enable configuration properties annotation. One last thing I'm going to do is paste this piece of code here, which basically exposes the SQL session builder customizer bean. Okay, so this is a bean that's required. Don't worry too much about typing this in. I'm going to commit this, and you're going to copy this into your main class. But basically what this is doing is it's using the Astra properties.get secure bundles path, and then it's creating a new CQL session builder customizer bean with that particular path in it. So it knows exactly where the secure bundle file is so that it can build the session. Okay. Again, don't worry too much about what's happening behind the scenes. Essentially, what you're doing is you're giving the Spring Data Cassandra infrastructure the ability to connect to your Astra instance by using the secure bundle that's downloaded. All right, it makes things a little bit secure, and you don't want anybody to be able to connect to your database, right? So this is a way for you to securely manage this. Again, don't worry too much about typing this, and you can of course pause and type this as is. But I'm also going to commit this once I get this working. And then you can basically copy this bean definition from that code. All right, so I'm going to try running this one more time. Okay, now here you see the application has started running. Okay, it doesn't give that error anymore that it's not able to connect to localhost whatever port, because it's not pointing to the localhost Cassandra database anymore, right? It's connecting to my Astra instance because I've asked it to use the secure bundle, and the secure bundle has everything it needs to connect to that, right? So with this combination of the application YAML file and this stuff here, now I have a Spring Boot application which uses Spring Data Cassandra that has connected to my Cassandra instance on the cloud, okay? Now what's left to do is have this do the job of taking the data one by one line after another, and posting it to a table in Cassandra, right? So we have the author dump and then the works dump, right? It's going to take one by one each line and create new rows in the database. So it all starts with creating a database entity class, right? A model class. And I'm going to have Spring Data Cassandra create the tables in the schema in the key space for whatever I've created in the Java class. All right, so let's do that next. So before I do that, I'm going to go over here and replace these values. You gotta change this, all right? So I'm going to commit this as is with these values. This is going to be the secret. All right. You're going to be getting those values from whatever you have and pasting this over here, db id. Again, follow the steps that I used in this video to get this connection going. All right, so I'm going to call this setting up connection with Cassandra. And I'm going to commit this. Well, let me actually get rid of the .ds_store here as well. So I'm going to go to .gitignore, and I'm going to .ds_store. This is a operating system file, which we don't need. So now I have this commit that I'm going to put over here. So I have committed this file, committed the state of the code at this point, and now I'm going to undo the stuff here because I want to continue working. So I've put all the changes back because I'm going to need to continue developing this, but I'm not going to be checking in this file because, you know, I don't want to be undoing and redoing this stuff. All right. So this is the state of the code where you have a Spring Data Cassandra application that can connect to the Cassandra instance that you've created on DataStax, right? As long as you plug in those values, right? Next, we will work on adding data to our Cassandra instance.